So thanks for joining today, folks. We're going to look at AI. Oh no, not another AI session. I hear them all shout. But today's going to be a little bit different, I hope. We're going to look at some practical things that we can actually do with AI, but also got some really good insights. So I'm joined today by Pat. Pat, I've worked with Pat now for about 4 years or so. He introduced us in a blaze of glory to the metaverse a few years back, just on the back of that COVID piece, and revolutionized, a lot of how we work internally as a team and with new clients. So it was a great journey. There's no doubt about it. Pat is kind of on his journey, if you like, is much more focused on AI, and has always had that AI thing going on, even before it was called AI, going on in the background. So we're sticking close to Pat because I haven't time to learn everything, and he knows a lot of stuff. So it makes sense and that's part of the theme today about collaboration and staying close to people. So I'll introduce you to Pat in just 1 second. But today is really about literacy. So I alluded to it there. We need to learn the language of. We need to start using those tools for competitive advantage, for sure. We need to spot opportunities that we can actually apply AI in a meaningful way, not just in a PR way or let's just do this because it's interesting. How can we apply it within our business? How do we collaborate? Who do we collaborate with? And then think of it from a strategic point of view. It's that kind of blue ocean thinking where you're thinking, what advantage could this bring to our business over time? And Pat will definitely talk about it's not that easy to see the future because there's so much noise, and we've came on a really, short time frame, but incredible technology leap that we're all just wrestling with. So you've got people out there who just about know how to spell it. You've got other guys out there who are, building businesses on the back of ChatGPT 3.5 and 4, but maybe not that sustainable. And Pat will give some great insights into that over the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes. Yep. So Pat, I'll let you do a better intro on yourself than I've give, hopefully.
No, I appreciate it, David, and good to connect again. So Patrick Perry, LinkedIn world. I've been over 20 years in go-to-market strategy, strategic partnerships, and sales, building out teams from 0 to 50 employees globally. I think it's kind of it's a good place to kind of go back through some historical context to kind of paint the picture of where we are with the amazing opportunity with AI, but putting it in a context that's a little more based in reality. So over my 20 years, I've probably gone through every imaginable hype cycle within that 20 years. Maybe there's some outliers, but all of the big ones, starting off with green roofing and commercial solar and solar farms, moving to smart cities, moving into the UAV and drone space, from the drone space to the metaverse space, and from the metaverse now to our new shiny object for the market, which is AI. So I think, historically, over those 20 years, some of the reasons that we haven't seen those industries or verticals or products or technologies scale as quickly as we all wanted to, what we were hyped up for, was a few different things. So starting from the beginning with solar, we had some kind of regulatory compliance, we had cost prohibitiveness, we had literally just the process hadn't really been flushed out from a technical installation perspective. So it was kind of stifled. We've started to see that change with, regulatory compliance opening up, some tax benefits and incentives, and we're starting to see more renewable energy, for example. Moving from there to smart cities, we had kind of the same similarity. The technology wasn't actually mature enough to deliver what the kind of solutions we're hoping to solve for. From there, I moved into the UAV space. And, maybe a decade ago, I think we were all really excited and we're imagining our pizzas coming down from the sky and our pharmaceutical prescriptions coming from CVS by flight, et cetera. And shockingly, I think just here in my neighborhood, I saw the first drone from a Walmart that happened to be going to a hospital to drop off prescriptions when I first got into that space was over a decade ago. So that kind of tells you, some of the challenges we've had with these kind of hype cycles, these amazing products that definitely can change the world, but we've been challenged, right? So fast forwarding to AI, I think, it's one of the more exciting disruptive technologies that's come into the market. As David alluded to, and I think what we've seen in the past with some of those previous examples is that everybody right now is trying to jump on the bandwagon, trying to build these products and go to market, raise a ton of money from VC and private equity. And what we're seeing generally is that a lot of those products are a little bit not as strong as they might present themselves. So a lot of these companies that we're seeing are taking off-the-shelf products like ChatGPT. They're putting really pretty wrappers, pretty complex wrappers around that, and going to market as though it's proprietary product or technology. I think if you really kind of look at the market as a whole, and historically from some of these other industries, what you've seen over time is that the companies that really keep that maintained growth and scale and provide value take a look at it in a little bit of a different way. Instead of saying, hey, we're AI, we can do everything, we're going to touch every single vertical, I think what you'll start seeing is a lot of these companies will start really honing down on one specific vertical. And I'll get into a couple of examples in a moment on that. But I think the reality right now is that everybody thinks they can do everything, right? AI has come on board. You take a look at it from an example perspective and you're like, oh my gosh, this can solve everything. And then you have the naysayers that are saying, oh my gosh, there goes my job. And, the whole world's going to crash and so on and so forth. So I think, there's those two mentalities, right? There's one where we're going to do everything and we know everything. And, we have a full understanding of this capability when in reality, nobody does. So I think the collaboration aspect is something that I've always led with in my past experience with some of these disruptive technologies. And why we were successful at companies like DroneBase, et cetera, is we were very, very honest initially to say there is no way that we can possibly deliver a full turnkey end-to-end solution in order to actually scale our production or our deployments. Right. So we ended up putting together very strategic partnerships with certain companies that had strengths where we had weaknesses, and we blended those and went to market together. So I think you'll see a lot of roll up in the AI space where there might be companies that were, very wide, kind of overarching every single vertical. They'll start to see success in one specific vertical, but they're going to have to figure out what to do with that entire other tech stack and kind of area of focus. Okay. So that's kind of, historical, broadly, kind of what we're seeing in the market and what might occur.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. And I guess, yeah, you say there's a lot of unknowns there, so nobody really knows what's going to happen. But I guess we have a good sense of how businesses actually function. They need to make money. It ultimately needs to work. It needs to be trusted by the consumer, of that. Notwithstanding, a lot of the things you talked about in there were legislative, challenges in terms of why certain technologies maybe didn't, go as wide. And there's a lot of chat about how do you legislate or manage or put, restrictions around AI. But the technology is moving so fast, we can't even control Google stopping, people putting inappropriate images on the internet. So that it feels like the worms are out. If they're out on that, then from an AI perspective, how would you ever rein that in? I was chatting to one of my colleagues just before we came on, and he was listening to a podcast and, a guy chatting. And what he was saying was, if I just want to get this phrase right, he says, we used to seeing is believing, so the evidence, if you wanted to show something, if you're looking at even, geopolitical things that are happening now, you will have them showing you what actually happened. And then you'll have them saying, well, that's verified now, we're the news showing it. Now we're the news verifying it. But what happens whenever AI is applied to deep fake video and all that sort of good stuff, so we're only touching the surface there. So seeing won't be believing in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time. So, that'll change the whole fabric and dynamic of that. But as I would always say, a bit like the stock market crashes and up and down, it'll always come back up because businesses need to be successful, so they'll make it come back up again. So I think there'll be a core business thing which will drive it. So it's interesting you've said that businesses are likely to pick the verticals that they can be strong and sustainable in, and maybe trust is a big part of that. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. So here's a good example. So as mentioned, I consult with a lot of private equity and venture capital firms. And so, as one can imagine, they have a huge pipeline of companies that kind of come in and present themselves as an AI solution, right? And so what we've really kind of enjoyed going through the process with these founders is to really drill down and kind of cut through some of the smoke and mirrors of this AI solution, right? So I think when you really drill down into it, I look at it as practical innovation, right? It's like you can have disruptive technology, you can have disruptive innovation, but practical innovation is something where, there's a use case that all of us, potentially have a lot of pain points with. And how do we solve for that, right? There are ways to do it with AI. So, for example, everybody has called a call center, I would imagine. My personal experience doing that is basically wanting to just end the day after I get off of those calls, or maybe even end that call mid-call because I'm just not getting anywhere, right? So with the advent of AI, right, when you look at that business model and CCaaS and omni-channel communication, you're basically, from an emotional standpoint, know that system, that workflow does not work, right?
Yeah.
Interconversational AI, intergenerative AI. You then are starting to see that, some of these very simple interactions that you might have, or I might have with my phone company, but the individual is very far removed from the actual company that I'm trying to solve a problem with. Right there is a very simple use case that you can hyper focus on. You don't even have to go through the full end-to-end kind of communication approach with that.
Yeah.
But it could literally be from, step 1 to step 3. And for example, traditional call centers, let's call the first call is 128 seconds, right? That's just that first person explaining your problem just to get to the second person. So 128 seconds, right? Over 2 minutes. With a lot of this conversational and potentially generative, you can decrease that to 4 to 5 seconds, right? So that alone, from a call center perspective, is a very, very valuable, kind of approach. Now, going back to the defensible IP and patents and actually not a wrapper on GPT, what you'll see with a lot of these companies are presenting is it's exactly that. So you'll ask kind of more specific questions, more nuanced human questions. And what do you know, that it doesn't quite go the route that you want. But again, you're starting from a very specific point, you're focusing on that, and then you're expanding upon that. So that kind of looks at it from an OpEx perspective, right?
Yeah.
Your operational expenses, you're going to kind of hopefully decrease those.
Yeah.
Where it gets really exciting, and this is further down the line with this technology actually maturing, is what are you gaining from all of these insights that you're hearing through the conversation? And then what can AI do to actually move that needle more quickly? I'm not going to give away all of the, but you can kind of think through that process, and that might be one way to look at it. Interestingly enough, from a biometrics and security and kind of deep fake perspective, I'm seeing a lot of companies that are coming into the market to solve for that, right? A lot of these companies, again, have brought off-the-shelf products together, blended or molded them in a very unique way. But at the end of the day, they're not really a differentiator on what can identify that deep fake, for instance, because, again, they're kind of stifled by what they've taken off the shelf.
Yeah.
That being said, it's going to be a huge, huge part of the market. And again, that's going to take one company or many companies to be hyper-focused just on that and owning their own proprietary stack of technology.
Yeah, that's really interesting in terms of, when you think about it from a business perspective, there's really two drivers always, pain and gain. So if the pain is, cost off, how do you, back in the day whenever they were creating call centers, they just kept adding lines and adding people, and then they realized, well, it's an infinite expansion. So what
Yep.
you've got to do is you've got to contract it and make it more difficult, which will turn people off, because if you make it easy for them, they'll consume it. But if you make it easy for them and they consume it and they get what they want quickly, and you've had an AI engine in there, which has to be repeatable,
Yep.
trustworthy, give you the right information. I know when I'm on those sorts of calls, I kind of know that I've got to go through 3 steps to get to the person who can solve the problem. So I have to suck it up and go through that. If I was getting, and even if I didn't have to speak to someone, if I just was able to, yes, no, maybe have this is what, tell me exactly what in your words, and it picks it up and it can cope with the Northern Irish accent and it gets me through. My car can't even, every time I ask it to play a particular radio station, it plays some obscure one. I'm thinking, what are you hearing? Because that ain't what I'm saying.
Yep.
So that leaves the consumer frustrated. It makes me say negative things about that car, and that's not what businesses want. What they want is that experience to be
Correct.
seamless, easy, nearly invisible. Where somebody mentioned that Apple aren't even mentioning AI, but what they're doing is they're using it to make the user experience better. Whereas others are saying, we've got AI on our phones now, we're doing this. And to be fair, the user doesn't really care. If the experience is good and it improves and it makes it more sellable and it reduces the cost, the user doesn't care. And that's the thing, that we don't care. So it is, the dials are interesting. Which one do you go to? Do you go to the pain one, which is reduces cost, makes the user experience? But the clever one is exactly that. How do you get those insights into the buyer journey and all of those things? And again, part of the other conversation was, it was back to I don't know what you call them over there, golden pages, whatever, but the business pages, you wanted to be A1 cleaners because you were
Yellow pages. Yes, I'm of that age, David. Yes.
Yeah, well, I didn't assume that you were, but and then you move forward to the Google bit where it's SEO, and we've SEO experts, and we provide a lot of that. And now people are looking at chat type engines as the search engine. And I go, well, how does SEO fall into that? It doesn't. So you could see a whole industry shift. But the timelines are the things that I'm really struggle with. It's, what horse do you back? Where do you go? How do you get ahead? Have you any insights as to how to get ahead of that? Because I think ChatGPT-4 is great, and I've got a sense of how it works and all that sort of good stuff, but I've no idea what 5's going to look like. Or as you say, those larger corps maybe are going to go deeper, do their own, and so any insights in terms of what would you do? How would you keep abreast of it?
Yeah, no, I think a couple of aha moments that I've had over the last couple of weeks with just meetings, and I've been San Francisco and Austin for a few meetings with some portfolio companies, is that I think kind of the path to market, right, with some of these companies and with these technologies, it's going to come down to the people that are very, very honest about what they're building. But again, building technology that is proprietary, that's going to take a lot of time. I think the secondary thing that a lot of people might not realize, right, is some of these largest global organizations, right, some of the Fortune 25, Fortune 100, largest orgs, where on the surface as a consumer or a potential client or just somebody in the world that sees that name, they basically look at that company and they're like, wow, what a beast. They've got to have everything just dialed in and so on and so forth. So shockingly, and a lot of people understand this, that a lot of these AI models are trained on information that is out there, right? So as much as we might think that Google has every single thing that we might need to find, and you can aggregate all that data, well, guess what? Shockingly, with these massive, massive companies, they might not even have their knowledge bases internally built out robustly enough or accessibly enough in order to train these models that are ultimately going to be powering these interactions, right?
Okay, yeah.
So So I think there's going to be some companies that are going to be very successful on looking at these organizations and saying, hey, we get it. We 100% want to be there with you for expansion of AI. But the architecture and the foundation that has existed thus far might not actually support what you guys are trying to do in the short term. And you have to look at the business a little bit more slowly, a little bit more carefully and strategically in order to build out that foundation. Okay. The other component, right, is we have I had a bunch of meetings down at the GTC conference with NVIDIA and so on. And one thing that people forget is there is a huge power load on actually doing these computations and interactions for AI. So you literally have a power consumption issue once you start getting into the really robust ones. Yeah. And of course, NVIDIA is positioning themselves beautifully for that. It will be solved for. But again, these are just some of the barriers that,
of course,
remove the shiny object, remove the excitement, and get down to the core of how are we going to actually be successful using this technology strategically, practically, and it'll organically, naturally scale. One final thing I'd say is I kind of went through like just a very short phase of like a little bit of fear, right? Because you have the hype cycle and the excitement, and then you also have the doomsday, everybody's going to lose a job and this is going to disrupt everything. So I think the way I've really, and again, it was short-lived for me. I think the most exciting thing for me is that, yes, people's jobs are going to be displaced 100%. That is business in general. There's been displacement of positions for technology implementations for decades and decades. Yeah. The really exciting thing for me is we are humans, and as powerful as AI is, the human component is always going to end up being more powerful, more ingenious, more ingenuitive than AI. So we're going to have tons of changes to the market over the next 3 to 10 years, right? What I'm really excited about is some of those lower tier, quote unquote, or perceived lower tier kind of positions or things that can be automated. All that's really going to do is spawn such a new kind of new growth and new way of thinking about things that there's going to be positions that never existed.
Never existed. Yeah, I agree.
There's going to be new professional paths that might use a bit of AI, but there's still going to be a human in the loop. So that's exciting to me. And I think
and again, we've had that one before where productivity tools actually make people busier.
Yeah, of course.
You get more done, then you have more to do. The faster you respond, the more you get given. Yep. And that's a psychological thing as opposed to, so we think, the things that we need to get done are infinite. You know what I mean? So you got to pick the 2 or 3 things that you really want to get done. Correct. And then agree some things you're just not going to do. That's not going to fundamentally change, but it will be the human that decides. And I think you're right. That's a really positive way to look at it, which is this is a great opportunity for us to have actually more free time to actually go and do more things. And, and if you think of the COVID stuff when we were all, the uber reverse of that, stuck in the home, nothing to do. We don't meet people. This is a chance to get out and actually live a little,
Utilizing AI, which is such a scary thing, to actually realize that the human interaction is so much more valuable, but we've got ways that we can get there quicker or we can have more time to do those things. Totally exciting for me.
Brilliant. That's a great final takeaway, Pat. Really appreciate it. Look, thanks for your time today. I know you're up early because you're in, God love you. I mean, sunny California.
What is time anymore, David? We're all good.
That's right. You know what I mean? It's a construct.
It is.
Look, I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'll see you very soon. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
And,
thanks, everybody.
You know how to get in contact with us on LinkedIn. So if you want to get more information, reach out on LinkedIn. We're always here.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone.